McConnell, he wants slavery back. But we'll get to that in a minute. We need to talk about this fake ceasefire first.
Fire all one.
Hold on, let's go. Hold on, let's do this real quick.
The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
Thanks, computer. Prepare to engage.
Cover up a fake ceasefire in order to build up missile stocks, troops in the region. It sure seems that way. Reports overnight from Reuters specifically, and now other news outlets weighing in on this. The thousands of Marines are being rapidly transferred from San Diego straight into the region, preparing for a potential ground invasion, maybe take Carg Island, Conarock, other spots. Why send all of these American forces if we're ironing out a ceasefire? We're sending Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They're on the case. Well, it doesn't seem like the U.S. and Israel have any intentions at all of a real ceasefire or meeting any of Iran's 10-point plan. Yesterday, the Trump administration was already taking a big victory lap over what it called a ceasefire breakthrough with Iran. But that celebration didn't last long at all. Almost immediately, Israel launched a series of terror attacks inside of Lebanon. Lebanese now saying, remember April 8th, the way that you remember October 7th, the way that we remember 9/11, April 8th. Israel bombing civilians, killing hundreds, reportedly more than 300 people killed, throwing the entire ceasefire agreement into doubt.
That puts the total of Israel's destruction in Lebanon at reportedly over 1,500. You guys, 1,500 people. Now, millions are being displaced. Thousands are injured. They are still digging out of the rubble. You saw for yourself entire buildings coming down on top of, I mean, that is not what you call a precision strike. A precision strike is not a real thing. It's a paradox. It makes us think that you can just sort of pluck out Hezbollah. Well, they're saying now that the value of Hezbollah is entire neighborhoods. Okay. And stopping this land grab was absolutely, according to Pakistani negotiators and the Trump administration themselves, part of the deal. The Iranian government demanded an end to the IDF's expansion in Lebanon, and they did not do that. Now, today, both the IDF and Prime Minister Netanyahu have said, absolutely not, we are not going to stop in Lebanon. That was never part of the deal, and we're not going to do it. Here is a video that you can seek out for yourself from the Prime Minister saying they are going to continue to strike Hezbollah with full force and continue inside Lebanon. They're couching this as we're going to secure the security of just Israelis because Hezbollah has been retaliating on behalf of Iran and on behalf of Lebanon itself, which is being invaded. And so Hezbollah now is attacking Israel in retaliation. Now, I just wonder if Israel can exclude Lebanon from the ceasefire, can Iran exclude Israel? I'm just curious. Can the ceasefire just be between the United States and Iran? Is that a thing? And is the Trump administration really going to blow up the ceasefire so that Israel can invade Lebanon and genocide them the way they did Gaza? Is that we're just going to have to watch that now? Is that what's happening next? What makes this even more revealing is that the Trump administration had been pushing hard for a ceasefire for days. Behind the scenes, officials were reportedly involved in shaping the message that Pakistani Prime Minister ultimately released, meaning they handed Pakistan a cheat sheet that did include withdrawal from Lebanon on behalf of Israel. Trump himself had signaled support for the Iranian proposal, which he called a workable basis from which to negotiate. Now, why the Trump administration ever thought that they could ask Israel to withdraw when they have already locked their jaws on Lebanon, I don't know, because the Biden administration could not get them to unlock their jaws on Gaza. How did we think that we could do this? I'm so curious. Now, joining us today to talk about this obvious scuttlebutt, is Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com and Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Great to see you guys. Yeah, good to be here.
All right, we'll start with you, Dave. What do you know about the peace negotiation and the obvious pee in the pool that Israel is doing in Lebanon?
Yeah, well, I mean, what we know as a fact is that the ceasefire that Iran agreed to included a ceasefire in Lebanon. It was in the statement that was released by Pakistan's prime minister that looks like it was probably drawn up by the U.S. We know at least that it was approved by the U.S. before it was issued. And not only did Israel didn't just continue their bombing, they escalated in the worst way imaginable and launched Operation Eternal Darkness, which I can't think of a more evil name for a military operation, and killed hundreds of people, as you were saying there. And then what does Trump say publicly? He says, Lebanon wasn't included. And the White House says that. J.D. Vance, what you mentioned there, that, okay, if the deal is only between the U.S. and Iran, does that mean that Iran and Israel could still fight? Because J.D. Vance said that it would be dumb for Iran to let the negotiations fall apart over Lebanon. But at the same time, in the same breath, he said that the ceasefire includes an end to attacks on Israel and the Gulf Arab states. So it's a really bad sign for these negotiations. And apparently Vance is flying into Pakistan with Kushner and Wickoff, who they should not be anywhere near this if the Trump administration was serious. So based on the behavior of both the U.S. and Israel just in the day after this ceasefire was declared, things really aren't looking good. And then the messaging from the Iranians is that they're not going to back down on these core demands that they've put out.
Max, do you buy the idea? Well, first of all, I find it very fascinating because this is right at the end of the approaching the sort of 60-day window here for the authorization of use of force, which would then have to recalibrate inside the White House, where they'd have to come up with another operational name. Today, reporting from the White House is that Operation Epic Fury has now, they're talking about it in the past tense. They're saying basically that was a success, it's done.
Oh, so they can
now we
reset
have a
the
pause.
clock.
Now we'll reset the clock. That's why all these troops are moving into position, and you see multiple reports about that. So I'm not buying the ceasefire at all. I know I'm a pretty cynical person, but where do you fall on this? Are you buying it? Is this just a reset moment in order for us to put more troops and weapons in place?
Well, maybe they have to reset the name of the operation because we rebranded it as Operation Epstein Fury, and it just kind of fell flat. I totally agree. And Dave presented a very succinct analysis of how the ceasefire has fallen apart in just a few hours, with J.D. Vance's dishonest comments claiming that Lebanon was never involved, when we could clearly, that Lebanon was never part of the terms, when we could clearly see, because the U.S. supplied a draft to Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, which he then proceeded to copy and paste onto his X account, including the header, to be posted by PM Shehbaz Sharif, which he then edited, which included Lebanon. So they're lying. J.D. Vance is lying. Everyone in the U.S. administration is lying. Lebanon was always included. Israel called, decided, we're going to massacre 250 people, bomb a funeral, bomb areas of Beirut we've never bombed before, and that will be it. We're going to provoke Iran to respond, and then we're going to blame Iran. And they blew up the ceasefire because they know that Donald Trump will not stand up to them, and that they control when Donald Trump starts a war and when Donald Trump ends a war. And we know that Israel is not happy with the war ending here or being left alone because it cannot fight on its own. We should also mention the ground operation that Israel's waging in Lebanon is not going very well. So resorted to a performative massacre in order to shatter the ceasefire while U.S. troops, Marines, are being deployed to the region for what appears to be the next phase. And then this ceasefire was exploited to allow rearmament, redeployment, and possibly send some new interceptors to Israel as it was running out. And it will not change the fundamental dynamics, which are determined by the choke point, or determined at the choke point of the global economy in the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of global commerce passes through there. Iran is now implementing a toll system using cryptocurrency to charge tolls for the passage of ships. And that means that countries that wish to have an economy have to avoid the U.S. and deal directly with Iran, which means that Iran has become more powerful now than it was before the war. It means that Iran is getting real dividends from this war through the application of force and the demonstration of their successful military doctrine. And that means that the elements of Iranian leadership, the IRGC, and their popular base in the country that support the war are gaining strength, while those that have always advised negotiations with the U.S. and re-implementing the JCPOA, which never gave Iran any dividends because the U.S. never gave them sanctions relief, are being weakened. And so we can clearly see, if the dynamics continue to play out, that there's very little the U.S. can do alongside Israel except cause more death and destruction while Iran gains power.
Yep. We're on the next one.
Politically.
Dave, I want to talk about the international response to the Beirut bombing because it's horrific. It should offend every conscious human soul. And yet, the political response has been tepid at best. I was thinking today about in 2015 when, all my Facebook friends put a Eiffel Tower overlay over their bio because of 12 deaths at Charlie Hebdo. I don't see Lebanese flags. I don't see international outrage. I don't understand it. Can you respond to anything that you might think of that is an actual flex of condemnation?
Well, I mean, I got the same feeling from reading the statements from European officials. We saw them say, really tepid language, as you said, no strong condemnation of what Israel has done here. And I think the most shameful as Americans is the fact that this isn't just Israel bombing Lebanon. They wouldn't be able to do this without our bombs and fighter jets that our government maintains. And as Max said there, they bombed a funeral. And I saw the pictures of the aftermath, and you could see there are coffins that were destroyed. I mean, how can you possibly justify that? And it does look like the purpose was to just kill as many people in Lebanon as they could in the day to just inflict this terror. And I don't know what you could call it other than a terrorist attack. And people like to speak in terms of 9/11s. I don't know if you remember, after October 7th, that was something Tony Blinken loved to say, was like, oh, based on Israel's population, October 7th was like 9/11. I forget the numbers, but
Yeah.
I mean, Lebanon is a tiny country. The population is like 5.5 million, and more than a million. I think the number now from the UN, and this is just people registered, is 1.2 million people displaced. I mean, this is a total catastrophe and humanitarian disaster. And it certainly does not get spoken about properly from these Western officials that we see putting out these statements.
No, it's the equivalent of 80 9/11s or 76 Pearl Harbors, Max. This is all part of the plan. And as Natalie mentioned earlier, you have Finance Minister of Israel, Smotrich, announcing that Israel will begin expanding its borders into Lebanon, specifically part of the Greater Israel Project, Syria, and specifically Gaza. And he says this is the only viable solution to ensure Israel is well protected. Watch this.
Pakistan in-person peace talks, and this is what the table is all about. JD Vance's
Sorry.
בכל החזיתות, באמת, סייעתא דשמיא הגדולה, ועבודה יוצאת מן הכלל של מערכת הביטחון על כל זרועותיה, מפקדים ולוחמים, ויש רגל מדינית מסיימת ביהודה ושומרון, שהורגת לחלוטין את רעיון חלוקת הארץ והקמת מדינת טרור בלב ליבה. תהיה רגל מדינית מסיימת בעזה שתרחיב את גבולותינו, תהיה רגל מדינית מסיימת בלבנון שתרחיב את גבולותינו על הליטני לגבולות ברי הגנה, תהיה רגל מדינית מסיימת בסוריה כתר החרמון והחיץ לפחות. כן, יש רגל צבאית.
So, they're not hiding it. This is all part of that Greater Israel Project that Mike Huckabee talked about with Tucker Carlson. Take it all. And that's exactly what's happening here. But reports are, Max, that the Israeli military is in disarray. And to Dave's earlier point about ground forces, I mean, there's a real problem of like a ground invasion into Lebanon with this Israeli military in sort of disarray. What do you make of that?
Well, Bezalel Smotrich, being one of the biggest psychopaths in the most fascistic government in Israeli history, which is saying a lot because these governments have been fascistic since the beginning, is speaking to a domestic audience there. This is not for our consumption. We're not supposed to see that. And that's because he comes from this party that used to be outlawed even in Israel, called Otzma Yehudit, or Jewish Power. They are the most extreme party on the spectrum, and they're polling very well among younger Jewish Israelis. They're the number 3 most popular party among the Israelis who have served in these genocidal wars for Greater Israel. And so he's just speaking to that constituency and promising them some gigantic reward for all their sacrifices as the military falls, as you said, into disarray. And this is something that isn't even being hidden. You hear this complaint from members of the Israeli army's general staff. Bezalel Smotrich's son is a perfect evidence of that. He was nearly killed in the initial wave of the Israeli ground invasion into Lebanon, along with many of his fellow soldiers. And his life was saved by Arab doctors inside Israel, while his father has called for Arabs and Jews to be segregated in hospitals and for Arabs to be prevented from treating Jews because he is a segregationist. So that's how desperate he got, and it speaks to the desperate straits of the Israeli army. Greater Israel was the objective of Netanyahu in getting the U.S. and Donald Trump to use the U.S. military as an Israeli proxy against Iran. A month later or more, the United States has lost the war, okay? They've lost. And that means that the project of Israel as this regional hegemon that was going to shatter Iran and actually then install some kind of puppet government, which would have forced Russia and China to deal with Israel as the Greater Israel Project actually started to consume the U.S. government itself, that is not happening right now. And Israel as a regional hegemon has been defeated by Iran to this point. The New York Times correspondent in Lebanon, or one of them, whose name I'm forgetting right now, she tweeted after the Israeli massacre yesterday that Christians and Sunni Lebanese and Lebanese who never would have supported Hezbollah are now calling on Iran to intervene and attack Israel to save Lebanon. And she actually had to delete that tweet because she was getting attacked by Zionists. It was very cowardly of her to delete that, or maybe the New York Times made her delete it. But that's the truth. That's the reality, is the Lebanese public is now rallying around Hezbollah and rallying for an Iranian response. This is in direct response to the kind of savagery and extremism we're seeing from people like Bezalel Smotrich, and that is not the dynamic that Israel promised would play out when it launched this war.
Dave, the Times of Israel, because now of the New York Times report that, that Max was talking about the correspondent there, but the New York Times, of course, this bombshell report about being dragged into this war, into Israelis' war, back on February 11th, and that Oval Office meeting where Netanyahu came and went into the Situation Room and did a 90-minute presentation with Mossad up on the screen and all of this. So the Times of Israel now saying that Israel dragged the United States into war isn't just wrong. Saying that is anti-Semitic. So you're not allowed to say it.
Wow.
But as Tucker revealed, I think we've talked about this in the past, but he succinctly summed it up about how the IDF literally has depth.
Hold on, wait a minute. We got to motherfucking screenshot that shit. We got to screenshot that shit. Get the fuck out of here. He said, we can't say Israel put us in the war. It's anti-Semitic. I'm about to put down the community post. I'm supposed to be. They know we on their head about this. Even the phone agrees. Even the phone agrees.
Is anti-Semitic, so you're not allowed to say it.
Wow.
But as Tucker revealed, I think we've talked about this in the past, but he succinctly summed it up about how the IDF literally has desks, permanent offices and desks inside the United States Pentagon, and where we sort of do the bidding of the IDF and Mossad inside the Pentagon. Watch, we got to stop it. But you could begin with, no, you can't serve in government if you've got 2 passports. Sorry, period, at any level. DMV up to DOD, no. And if you've served in a foreign military, come on now. Especially when the U.S. is at war, you can't serve in the U.S. government if you've worn a foreign uniform. Of course not. You can't hold elective office if you fought for somebody else's country, because by definition, you have fought for aims that are not the same as ours. In fact, they may be in opposition to ours. You may have fought against what's good for the United States. Certainly, if you served in the IDF, you fought against what's good for the United States, knowingly or not. Probably didn't mean to, but you did. You shouldn't go to jail for that. But you can't be allowed to work at, say, the Pentagon. But right now you can. And by the way, there are IDF officers working out of the Pentagon because they have an office within the Pentagon, as they do at CIA and Langley. A foreign government has offices in our critical executive branch headquarter buildings. That's just not healthy. Branch headquarter buildings. That's just not healthy. IDF soldiers who walk the halls and actually are kind of rude to like other people that work at the Pentagon and sort of like that they kind of run the place. How are we allowing the IDF, Mossad, to have this infiltration inside of our government, inside of our Department of War, Dave?
Well, I mean, this goes back many years, of course, but with this current administration, it's almost, they're so beholden to Israel. It's just kind of to another level. And what was really interesting, I thought, about that New York Times report was that pretty much every senior Trump advisor was named as being kind of saying what Netanyahu was telling them was BS. That was actually the quote from Marco Rubio. And also they had John Ratcliffe saying what Netanyahu was telling them was farcical. And I thought that was very significant because if you go back before the June 2025 war, as I understand how things went down, is that we knew that U.S. intelligence was saying there was no evidence Iran was building a nuclear weapon. But the Mossad laundered intelligence through the CIA, through John Ratcliffe, claiming that they were. And now we have Ratcliffe, not on the record, but in this report, saying that he was doubting the Israeli intelligence. And I think that's potentially a good sign that they know that this whole thing has been a disaster and that they're looking for a fall guy. And the fall guy is going to be Pete Hegseth, because he was the only one in that report who they said was totally on board with this. And when it comes to kind of that control, like, you know, how has our government become this kind of subservient to a foreign power? People like Hegseth and, you know, are a demonstration of that. They have this kind of ideological underpinning. You know, he's a Christian Zionist who wants the Third Temple to be rebuilt. He shares common goals of people like Bezalel Smotrich. And then, of course, you have also the Jewish Zionists in the government and Jared Kushner, whose family is friends with the Netanyahus, and somehow he's still involved in these negotiations, and during the previous negotiations, which were a total farce, him and Witkoff were apparently convening with Netanyahu every day, speaking to him every day about this.
Yeah.
Right. So they're in charge, and Trump has been open about the fact that one of his biggest donors cares more about Israel than the U.S. So this stuff is just so in our face now. That's why that New York Times report, it probably didn't surprise anybody that Netanyahu gave this big briefing to convince the U.S. to go to war. But the two people who look really bad from that report are, as I mentioned, Pete Hegseth and also President Trump, because it just shows that he was doing this going along with whatever Netanyahu and Israel was saying. And I think the only hope we have to kind of come out of this soon without another war and everything is if Trump, decides to take the step to actually put pressure on the Israelis. But unfortunately, we're just not seeing any sign of that after this so-called ceasefire was announced.
Right. Max, I know you have to go. You have another commitment, so thank you for being here. Do you have any final thoughts on Tucker and his reporting since this, week of possible nuclear fallout?
Well, I think just to wrap it up, Dave hinted at Pete Hegseth taking the fall, and now there's this internecine war.
He gotta take the fall. Even Trump threw Hegseth under the fucking bus. He gotta take the fall. He gotta take the fall. But real shit, Trump gotta go down with the ship too. Trump and Hegseth gotta go down too. Y'all already know this. You know what I'm saying? But definitely Hegseth. Definitely. Pete Hegseth got to get the fuck out. But real shit, Hegseth look like he don't give a fuck. He look like he want to murder everybody. He came in this bitch hounding all the old motherfuckers, start firing generals like, bitch, we going to fucking war. Y'all niggas are fat as fuck. Go to the gym, you bitch ass fat fucks. We about to motherfucking haunt people's motherfucking you black niggas, y'all ain't about to upgrade no more. You gonna stay where the fuck you at in your rank. Y'all women, y'all stay in y'all rank. Y'all ain't going nowhere. I'm about to bring in some new soldiers that's ready to motherfucking kill without question. We are going to fucking war. I am Pete Hegseth. That's what the fuck going on. He know he's not liked in the motherfucking spot. He know it. And the fucking goal is to not be fucking liked. The goal is to motherfucking be in fear of losing your fucking job to a motherfucker that's younger than you. But P. Hegseth look like an old young nigga. How you like an old young nigga? I think he dyes hair. He be dyeing his hair. Because I could have sworn I saw black hair club for men dye. Nigga had the hair club for men dye in his head. He had the dye number 8 in his head. Now he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna rock the gray, show him my age. P. Hegseth said they gonna lock your ass up for war crimes.
Inside the Pentagon between Hegseth and Dan Driscoll, who's the Army Secretary, going up against Pete Hegseth, who was a mid-level officer in the National Guard. I think Hegseth's at a clear disadvantage. He could be the fall guy. Remember, he was exposed during Signalgate. He got exposed last week. Somehow he's the only one getting exposed for insider trading. When everyone from the Trump kids down to Barron Trump, the Witkoff kids. I mean, they're all
a lot of motherfuckers doing insider trading supposed to have been locked up. Let's go back in time with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of her motherfucking friends. We can go back to that. Insider trading. A lot of motherfuckers supposed to get locked up for that. That's how motherfuckers keep their money. That's how motherfuckers keep their money and motherfuckers stay afloat. It's the insider trading shit. Because at the end of the day, the actual stuff, how can a motherfucker really be truly motherfucking wealthy off of the motherfucking politics if you only make this amount of money every year or that amount of money every year? How the fuck is y'all super wealthy? Yeah, y'all doing inside trading. Or y'all getting bent over by a billionaire somewhere. But I'm going with insider trading for 1,000.
We know they're all involved in it. He's the only one who gets exposed. All these leaks are coming out about Hegseth, so it will be delicious to see
Pause, nigga.
Coup de grace.
Talk about some
but
delicious.
At the same time, we never
Much
see
love,
the
Emma.
leader who's responsible for this.
Peace to the Netherlands. Peace to the Netherlands. Should be like 2:00 in the afternoon over there. Is it 2:00? Give me some lunch. It's early in the morning over here. It's 8:08. I'm trying to take care of this before I go head on out. Then come back. See what we got popping.
Face any consequences, as Tucker pointed out, and that's Donald Trump. It was Donald Trump in that February 11th meeting that we all now know about, who made the decision almost alone to follow Netanyahu into this calamitous war, which has sent the global economy into a crisis that will last years. Mm-hmm. And, what kind of accountability will he face? None from within his inner circle, because as we can see, they all knew this was would be disastrous, that Netanyahu was lying to Trump, and none of them faced Trump. They're all yes men and yes women like Susie Wiles, who are afraid to tell Donald Trump the truth. And so here we are. Donald Trump will have to face accountability, I guess, at the ballot box in the midterms.
Fuck
and
that.
J.D. Vance will face
consequences
for standing by Trump and for lying about this ceasefire. But there should be legal accountability for threatening the death of an entire civilization, for attacking civilian infrastructure. And we have to consider that the Democrats are doing nothing to hold Donald Trump accountable, which is another reason why he's getting away with it. I believe that Chuck Schumer, in his heart of hearts, the Democratic majority leader, actually supported this war at its outset, and now he wants it to continue because it's harming Trump. So they're not going to do anything to stop it.
Right. On the contrary, I just wanted to add, the DNC today refused to condemn AIPAC. So the uniparty is, it's almost comical. Like, yes, this is all terrible. There's this mass civilian casualties at the hands of this government that this political action committee supports, but we cannot condemn it. It's wild sauce. Thank you so much for being here with us, Max. Dave, will you stay a little bit longer? We want to ask you a few more questions.
Sure, yeah. I just want to remind Max, I know he was saying before he goes, Max, I just want to put this back up on the screen to remind you that saying that the United States was dragged in by Netanyahu is anti-Semitic. Saying that Israel dragged the U.S. to war isn't just wrong, it's anti-Semitic. I want you to think about that as you go about the rest of your day.
Yes. Wisdom from Shlomo. Thank you.
Thanks, Max.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Max. So, Dave, I wanted to ask you about the players now who are flying to the Middle East, the envoy that's going to be meeting over the ceasefire, putting this 10-point plan in place. Here's a graphic. You can see Kushner. You can see the players that are... There they are. You got J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Mohammed Ghalibaf, Abbas Araghchi from the Iranian side. And this will be, of course, in Pakistan. Why should they trust us again in Pakistan? Why should they trust us again?
Because we got money and guns and bombs. Because we got money.
That's a good question. I mean, the fact that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are anywhere near these negotiations, I think is a bad sign. I think they got to stay home. Especially Witkoff's performance this last round. He went on Fox News, I think, and just said, this is during the negotiations when they supposedly want a deal. And he said, they can have enough nuclear material for a bomb within a week. Just no evidence whatsoever backs that up. And then, as I mentioned before, you had, Kushner was conferring with Netanyahu during the negotiations, and even though he's not technically a member of the administration, he's been deeply involved in all of these so-called deals that we've seen in the Middle East. The one in Gaza, he was very involved in, and just today, the IDF shot a 9-year-old girl in the head.
Damn.
People have been getting killed there every day, which has been completely overshadowed by this war with Iran. JD, it's interesting that Vance is going to be there. Unfortunately, we were just discussing that New York Times
Peter
report.
Thiel's guy.
As Max kind of said there. It says in that report that nobody opposed the war more than J.D. Vance, but he sure did not seem like it in all of his public comments. He stood by and after the U.S. bombed an elementary school and just, supported it and played into a lot of the propaganda. And, the questions that he took, I think when he was in Hungary yesterday about this, he made some remark like, the parliament speaker, Ghalibaf, he said something like, I don't think his English is very good, that he didn't understand the points or something. That's not a good sign. That doesn't sound very diplomatic. And he's also, going along with this lie that the ceasefire didn't include Lebanon. So those are all bad signs. And I think if they really want a deal, they're going to have to be serious and they're going to have to, respect Iran's positions here. And sending Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff doesn't seem very respectful to me.
Yeah,
I agree. And let's not forget the stance. People think, this J.D. Vance is going to be the savior when he runs eventually. They're all in cahoots, and they're all part of this, and they have fully supported this war. There's been really no daylight at all about it. Dave DeCamp, antiwar.com is a must-read website.
Yep. Now let's get to Mitch McConnell. I know everybody want to see the Mitch McConnell.
Mitch,
bring slavery.
Those were the good old days. Kevin, how will we do that? There's no way we can do that, Mitch. Black people won't do it, but white people will.
What? That's what again.
Transcripts. Mitch, we have to bring slavery back. Those were the good old days. Kevin, how will we do that? There's no way we can do that, Mitch. Black people won't do it, but white people will. Kevin, how will we get white people to be slaves? That sounds ridiculous. Mitch, we have to get rid of the separation of church and state. We must have state-funded religious schools. Kevin, I don't see where you're getting at. Mitch, those schools will have work programs for 4th through 8th graders. Kevin, I think I see where you're going here. How is that going to work? Mitch, we get the kids to pick all the produce as a part of their work program to teach them the values of good old-fashioned blue-collar labor and the bounty of God. Kevin, I don't think that anyone will go for that. Mitch, it's all about grooming. Start in the 1st grade, and by 4th grade, they'll be ready to do it. Kevin, but we already have people to pick the produce. Mitch, we have to finish the wall. Kevin, no way that's going to happen. Mitch, we find better ways to get the immigrants out of the United States. Kevin, like doubling ICE. Mitch, yes. Kevin, this will be too hard, and we'll be too busy trying to sustain this over long periods of time and generations. Mitch, no, we get rid of the abortion laws in the United States and we make it mandatory that all 8th grade females be impregnated in order to graduate. Kevin, like replacing the crops. Ha ha ha. Pun intended. Also, Kevin, I will work on getting the abortion ban. You work on state-funded religious schools. Mitch, we don't have to do either. Lindsay and I took care of that with the new SCOTUS.
These folks said it is better to be a slave than to be dead. And not only was this released on an educational program for kids, but the Department of Education in Florida has approved it to be a part of a curriculum for kids. And what's crazy is y'all don't even see the trajectory that this is going in. A couple weeks ago, they released a transcript stating how they weren't going to try to get the blacks back out in the fields because they are aware that we ain't going back out in the fields. Their target has changed from blacks to little white babies. They're targeting their own kind, and even going so far as to open up schools and put it as a part of a curriculum so that they can train them that this is okay. Even went so far in the transcript to say that to make sure that they can keep the legacy going, they will make sure that every girl in the 8th grade was impregnated so that they never run out of slaves.
How you looking, Mitch? Mitch McConnell.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome. I'll be back.
I've heard the leaked audio from July 2022 from Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy. I haven't been able to validate it though, so I'm not going to repost it. But it's out there. I just don't know if it's AI or if it's real. If you find out, let me know and I will put it out there. Good evening, friends.
So there's this alleged leaked audio transcript of a hot mic conversation between Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell. So apparently in this hot mic conversation, they talk about slavery. They talk about bringing slavery back. Mitch McConnell says, I know black people won't do it, but white people will. He went on to say that the plan is to create religious schools where kids from the 1st to the 4th grade would pretty much learned to pick produce. Kevin McCarthy's like, well, we already have people to pick produce. Mitch McConnell goes, well, we got to figure out how to get more people, immigrants, out of the country. All of that is wild, and it's all alleged. We can't confirm that this is, real or whatnot, but the man that's got the transcript claims this is a real conversation. But he goes on to say, we have to ban abortion in all the states and make getting pregnant by 8th grade a stipulation to graduate.
And that's fucking crazy. Get chicks pregnant in the 8th grade. How old is a young girl in the 8th grade? I don't even what was that 12, 13? Like what? See, it's shit like this that makes me say that we need a Bacon's Rebellion Part 2. For real. And if y'all don't know what a Bacon's Rebellion is, go look it up. I covered it. It's shit like this that's gonna make people fuck some shit up. You know what I'm saying? Now, if y'all don't know what the Bacon's Rebellion is, let me just give you a brief summary. The Bacon's Rebellion is poor blacks and poor whites coming together, taking down the government. What happened was the government was like, oh shit, let's grab the white people and create classification. So now it's going to be black versus white. Look, we know shit fucked up, but we'll give y'all some shit, but you got to help lock up black people. And white folks is like, okay. But this new Bacon's Rebellion that we have now, I don't think the white people is going to be tricked this time. Because now they understand what we have been through being in this country 400 plus years of fucking slavery. See, what has been going on over here in this country for a very, very long time, like I say 400 plus years, we have been fucked up, fucked over, murdered, raped, pillaged, lost our culture. We have lost everything on this land. And our ancestors built this bitch to give it to the privileged. You know what I'm saying? Now the privileged are being fucked up just like how we are. Now they know how it feels to be us. So let's burn this motherfucker down together. No more bills, no more 40-hour work weeks or working at a meaningless job that you hate. We can finally breathe clean air and drink clean water. No government watching us with surveillance and drones. No more chemtrails in the air. No more fluoride in the water. No more GMOs in our food. We can finally all be free. You know? But we can't have that because there's people that still believe in being ruled by other men. There's people that still believe in the American dream. But they call it the American dream because you got to be asleep to believe it. Hashtag George Carlin. You know, hashtag George Carlin.
Now that's very dystopian, right? Because what? But this is supposedly a conversation between our 150-year-old snapping turtle and the fence rider Kevin McCarthy. The indoctrination through religion, people think affects black people more than everybody else, but actually the indoctrination through religion affects white people way more than everybody else. So I don't know what y'all gonna do, but he's targeting poor white folk. That's who's the target. It's not people with money. It's poor white folk. why they are doing their best to try to cut funding to higher education. Because if they can get poor white folk to be the new slaves, their children, and we're not talking about slavery through like force, like how my ancestors had to be forced into slavery. This will be voluntary slavery. They say they are going to groom the children to enjoy blue-collar labor and to see no hope beyond that. That's some wild shit. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin here with The Truth. And today we're diving deep into this political plot twist that could very well change everything for the Trump-Vance White House and administration. So buckle up, because this is about to get very, very interesting. So here's the deal. All right, here's the scoop. Mitch McConnell, the former Senate GOP leader, has just declared he's not done playing the game. Stepping down from leadership? No, not happening. Or even better yet, sure, yeah. How about retiring from playing political chess, 4D chess? No, not a chance. Not happening, not a chance. He's not out. He's not out. He's essentially just changing his playbook. He's aiming for the chair of the Senate Rules Committee. And, honestly, I think that this is also tied into a part of what we just saw happen yesterday with Matt Gaetz and Pam Bondi, all right? And at first, I wasn't 100% convinced that Trump was actually playing and manipulating Congress, okay? But I think he is. And I think he is because he has to, okay? Because as they play their games, he then plays his game to see how they're going to respond to react in their game, okay? This isn't cut and dry. This isn't linear. This isn't just black and white. This isn't going to be easy, okay? The easy part was actually, seemingly, hindsight, winning the election, especially knocking out Joe Biden and then having to run against Kamala Harris. What a simple and easy and quite comical task, okay? But let's try to break this down and share with you guys why this is like the ultimate power move in the Senate right now. So think of the Senate Rules Committee as the rule book keeper of the Senate, basically. And they decide how the game of legislation is going to be played. Kind of like the referees in a Kansas City Chiefs game. Yeah, okay. They can delay, they can modify, or they can flat out block. And guess who wants to be the referee now? Yeah, Mitch McConnell. Mitch, the closer, McConnell. I don't know if he's actually, is that his real nickname, the closer? It's more like a stiff. He's out here trying to block Donald Trump, trying to move his policy pawns forward in this game of chess. And here's Mitch McConnell ready to change the rules right as the game is being played, right under his nose, okay? And I'm sure Trump was aware, and his team, they knew that this was a possible obstacle that they would face, okay? Imagine you're trying to pass a bill, right? You're all set, and then all of a sudden...
Okay, so I got the transcripts. Mitch, we have to bring slavery back. Those were the good old days. Kevin, how will we do that? There's no way we can do that. Mitch, black people won't do it, but white people will. Kevin, how will we get white people to be slaves? That sounds ridiculous. Mitch, we have to get rid of the separation of church and state. We must have state-funded religious schools. Kevin, I don't see where you're getting at. Mitch, those schools will have work programs for 4th through 8th graders. Kevin, I think I see where you're going here. How is that going to work? Mitch, we get the kids to pick all the produce as a part of their work program to teach them the values of good old-fashioned blue-collar labor and the bounty of God. Kevin, I don't think that anyone will go for that. Mitch, it's all about grooming. Start in the 1st grade, and by 4th grade, they'll be ready to do it. Kevin, but we already have people to pick the produce. Mitch, we have to finish the wall. Kevin, no way that's going to happen. Mitch, we find better ways to get the immigrants out of the United States. Kevin, like doubling ICE. Mitch, yes. Kevin, this will be too hard, and we'll be too busy trying to sustain this over long periods of time and generations. Mitch, no, we get rid of the abortion laws in the United States and we make it mandatory that all 8th grade females be impregnated in order to graduate. Kevin, like replacing the crops. Ha ha ha, pun intended. Also, Kevin, I will work on getting the abortion ban. You work on state-funded religious schools. Mitch, we don't have to do either. Lindsay and I took care of that with the new SCOTUS.
Well, now it could be real or it could be AI, but we on the last video. Shahid, talk to him.
The average American, not the wealthy American. Not the tiny percentage of Americans who are making six figures. The ordinary American, the average citizen, the regular citizen is completely cornered financially. Any small emergency, any car repair, medical bill, busted pipe is a destabilizing event. His rent or his mortgage is drastically disproportional to what he actually gets for his money. His insurance feels predatory and it keeps being denied. His health care is rationed by his capacity to pay. Look, I was born and raised in America. Like I say, I was born and raised in America and I lived there until I was in my 30s. And I can count on one hand the number of times that I ever went to see a doctor because it's ludicrously unaffordable. The prescription that most Americans, the most average Americans take for a sickness is called wait for it to go away, wait for it to work itself out, or wait until you get used to it. You know, they say, and maybe you've heard in your own countries, that America has the best medical professionals. America has the best medical research. America has the best medical facilities in the world. Well, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know. Americans wouldn't know. Because most people have about as much access to those great medical facilities as they have access to becoming an astronaut. All those wonderful medical facilities, all those wonderful healthcare facilities, they may as well be on the moon. It'd be cheaper for an American to pay for the airfare to go overseas to get treatment in the global south than to go to a hospital in their own city. I'm telling you, I was born 54 years ago. I was born 54 years ago, but the way that we had to deal with health and illness and medical issues, medical emergencies, is as if I was born 150 years ago, because you just bear with it. You're like some kind of cowboy on the prairie. You just bear with it. For the average American, his employer is offering fewer benefits and expecting more work than what the job description requires, expecting you to work even when you're not on the clock. No, offices are tyrannies. Offices are tyrannical. And there's no job security even. Your position is constantly at risk. You're working more and getting less. Your salary cannot sustain you. You live on credit. Even if you work full time, you live on credit. And you're not borrowing for luxury. You're not borrowing for indulgence. You're borrowing for survival. The average citizen in America trusts no one, least of all their government. You trust the media even less. You trust strangers even less. You trust corporations less. Increasingly, you even distrust the idea of your country itself. You trust that even less. Your default assumption is that everyone is lying. That's how he feels. Because everybody lies to everybody. Everybody preys on everybody else. The whole social fabric that once held America's mythology together is fraying, thread by thread, erosion, like I said. For the average American citizen, the common feeling is that everything is getting harder. Everything is getting harder. Everyone feels like they're barely coping. They're barely hanging on. They're barely keeping it together. That's erosion. That's a wearing down every year, every month, every week, every day. A little more friction, a little more anxiety, a little more stress, a little less hope, a little more desperation, a little less healthy, a little more feeling caged, feeling trapped, and feel like you're sinking. And all you have is entertainment. All you have is escapism and drugs and alcohol and doom scrolling and pornography and video games and mindlessness. Even if you're not on drugs in America, you're on drugs. SubhanAllah. Even if you're not on drugs, you're on drugs. Tranquilizers, sedatives, antidepressants, antipsychotics, in the form of meaningless pastimes, in the form of propaganda, and in the form of amusement, mindless amusement. You have got Amazon, you've got online shopping, you've got deliveries, because they've made it as convenient as possible. They made it as comforting as possible to sink you into unpayable debt. So yes, you can have nice things. You can have fancy, pointless things. You can have too many clothes. You can have too many devices. You can have your 12-step skincare routine. You can have your dozen shampoos and conditioners in your shower and whatnot. And you can post about it on social media to make it look like you're not struggling, to just keep your head above water. They'll make all of that easy for you. They'll encourage you to act like that. But the underlying experience, the lived experience, is one of contraction. Fewer places are even safe. Fewer institutions are reliable. Fewer opportunities are believable or even pan out. The country that the average citizen was taught to expect is slowly and incrementally disappearing. That mirage is fading away. It's evaporating. And none of this is happening by accident. Yes, you need to know this. This is what you need to know, because if you keep telling yourself that things have just taken a bad turn somehow, or that somehow America just got lost, just lost the plot somewhere along the way, then you might try to convince yourself that a correction is possible. But this is what I need you to understand. You need to understand that you are living through the correction right now. This is the correction. What you're dealing with right now, this is the correction. They knew at least 30 years ago that America's days were numbered. And they have a whole population. See, this was their problem. They have a whole population that actually believes the hype about America. Do you understand? At that time, there were people who thought, Khalas, America is the king of the world. America is the king of the world and always will be. But anyone with any sense, anyone with any money in the game, well, they knew that America had nowhere to go but down. They knew that. They knew that at least 30 years ago. At least 30 years ago. And they've been busy preparing for the inevitable. You know, when I talk about the owners and controllers of global financialized capital, the OCGFC, when I talk about how they are managing the necessary transition to a post-American world order, I'm not talking in abstractions. What you're watching right now, what you're watching in America right now, is what managed disassembly looks like from the inside. The capital has already moved. Talking about financial capital, it's already moved. The strategic investment has already repositioned. The manufacturing base was already offshored. You understand? The financial architecture has already begun the diversification away from the dollar, away from dollar-denominated dominance. And that's only going to accelerate over the next decade. Now, this was not forced upon them. This was executed by them. You understand me? And you're still out here talking about being American. You're still out here talking about Team America. What are you even talking about? There's no such thing. That's just a myth that they use to keep you docile and compliant. American patriotism is the opiate of the masses. Your so-called citizenship, your so-called nationality. No one making decisions in that country believes in any of that. None of your policies are based on any of that. But you can't see it. You can't see it with your red, white, and blue blinders on. That flag is a blindfold. You got a star-spangled bag over your head. And they're leading you right into the slaughterhouse with that bag over your head. No, all those institutions, all those leaders, all those politicians, all those elites, all those public figures.
Welcome back. Thank you.
They're leaving you behind. They're engineering their way. They're engineering their pivot away from your so-called America. Do you understand? The people being left behind are all of you so-called Americans who identify as that. And they're airlifting themselves out of there. And you're stuck with the aftermath. You're stuck with the desolate, eroding aftermath, the decay. And now you understand, or you should understand, exactly why they have been so relentlessly trying to make you stupid, trying to make you oblivious, trying to make you ignorant, trying to make you illiterate and gullible and lazy. Yes, they have engineered that. You understand me? It's deliberate. I'm telling you, they have been running a preemptive counterinsurgency campaign on you for decades. They've been feeding you a slow drip poison of idiocy and immaturity your whole life, just to make sure that you won't be able to oppose them, to make sure that you won't be able to resist, to make sure that you won't be able to stand up, that you won't be able to organize, that you won't be able to fight back, so that you won't be able to survive, because you're being culled. It's a slow motion culling. That's what's going on. Do you understand? Preemptive counterinsurgency, making you incapable before you could ever even pose a threat, before things ever even started happening that you might react to, that you might oppose. Because they fed you on Americanism for so long. They fed you on exceptionalism for so long, on democracy and liberty and whatnot for so long, that they actually turned you into true believers in that mythology. And if they didn't paralyze you with stupidity, if they didn't paralyze you with confusion and infantilization, then you might actually do something about it when the time came. When the time came for them to throw you under the bus, you might fight it. You might not agree to just be extracted from. You might not agree to just be a slave, to just be a conduit for your money. You know, just a conduit. That's what you are, something that the money just passes through. You understand? From your employer to consumer goods, to banks, to Amazon, or what have you, because that's all you are. You're just a conduit. You work to earn so that the money you earn can just be routed back out to other corporations. You're just an instrument. And if they had not spent so much time, if they had not spent so much effort, turning you into a vapid doom scroller, turning you into a superficial, uninformed, manic automaton, then there was a chance that you might fight back. So you see, they had to make sure that you were incapable of that. And you are incapable of that. That's the truth. They were successful. The fact of the matter is they were successful. Now you have almost no useful function whatsoever. So you know what they're going to do with you now? I can tell you what they're going to do with you now. They're going to make you sick. They're going to make you sick. That will be your contribution to the economy. And they don't even have to engineer a pandemic to do it. They can literally sell you organ failure pills. They can sell you cancer injections, and you'll buy them. You'll buy them. You'll charge thousands of dollars to your credit card to buy tablets that will deliver nothing but lifelong organ malfunctions to you. And all they have to do is tell you that those pills will help you lose weight. All they have to do is tell you that those pills will help you grow muscle, will help you have smoother skin, or that those pills are going to improve your sexual performance, or that they're going to de-age you, or whatever the case may be. And you put them in your shopping cart, and then you put them in your bloodstream. Never mind that your pancreas won't work in a couple of years, or your liver, or your kidneys, or your heart. And they've got you in such a permanent brain fog that you'll even buy it based off of an AI avatar selling it to you with an AI-generated sales pitch. Disease ordered right to your door with free delivery. And that's decades of profit for the pharmaceutical and insurance industries. Decades of infirmity and illness and misery for you, but decades of profit for them. Just what the doctor ordered. Oh, they're disabling you in every which way. Look at AI, ChatGPT, and what have you. They're literally making intelligence a subscription service. You understand? Or rather, a subscription service for pretending to know stuff, pretending to be intelligent, pretending to be able to do things. What do you think that means long term? Look at the underlying market need. Like, look, what's the underlying market need for big pharma? It's illness. It's the monetization of sickness. So it's in their interest to promote what makes you sick. What's the underlying market need for the defense and weapons sector? For the defense and weapons industry? What's the monetization of war? So it's in their interest to promote and to spread conflict. Okay, so what's the underlying market need for AI? It's the monetization of stupidity and incompetence. So what is it in their interest now to promote among the society, among the people, among the population? If you don't know the answer, that's the answer. If you don't know the answer, that's the answer. I said they're preparing you for culling. They're numbing you and tranquilizing you so that you don't fight it. Because the people who are executing the transition are not interested whatsoever in so-called Americans or so-called America, not whatsoever. They're interested in the optimization of capital flows across a multipolar world. Multipolar world that is emerging regardless of what any flag-waving American politician says. The decline of American imperial reach is not a failure of the system. It is the system working as the owners of the system have decided that it should work at this stage of history. What Donald Trump represents, I've said this many times, what Donald Trump represents, what any of these political figures represent, to be honest, is the performance of agency inside of a cage whose bars were installed decades ago. You keep talking about red states, blue states, Republicans, Democrats, right and left. Do you know how foolish you sound? SubhanAllah, do you know how foolish you sound? You know, you talk about bread and circuses, right? Everyone thinks they're clever when they talk about bread and circuses. And you mean sports, you mean movies, you mean music and entertainment and so forth. But your whole political system is a circus. It's the greatest show on earth. Instead of a circus tent, it's in the Capitol Rotunda. It's the dome of the Capitol building. That's your circus tent. The White House is nothing but your big top. You've got the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Well, that's nothing but the three rings of a three-ring circus. Nobody that you elect is ever going to reverse the structural logic that has been set in motion here, because the structural logic is not political. It's economic. It's the repositioning of capital. And capital doesn't wait for election results. It's the other way around. You understand me? I've seen people talking about, in the U.S., talking about voter ID laws, because supposedly they don't want undocumented immigrants to be able to vote. That's on the pro side, the people who are pro-voter ID. And on the other side, well, they say it's voter suppression. But I'm saying, what are you even talking about? First of all, if your elections actually mattered at all, I mean, if your elected politicians actually controlled policy, if that's how things actually worked, right? Well, if that was the case, then everyone in the world should be allowed to vote in American elections. No, citizenship shouldn't even be a criteria for voting in American elections, because American policies affect everyone in the world, everyone on earth. The other one wants to call himself the leader of the free world, the global policeman and what have you. You're the one who butts into everyone's affairs in everyone else's countries. No, Venezuela should be able to vote in your elections. Iranians should be able to vote in your elections. Iraqis should be able to vote in your elections. If you believed even a little bit in what you preach about democracy, about the consent of the governed and so forth, then as long as you are a citizen of planet Earth, you ought to have a say in who sits in the White House. It's completely obnoxious for you to think that only so-called American citizens should be able to decide that, should have a say in deciding that, because you never mind your own business in the world. You openly involve yourself in other countries. You literally kidnap, and literally assassinate the leaders of other countries. You do regime change. You topple governments, color revolutions. You interfere nonstop all around the world. Well, then everybody in the world, everybody all around the world should have a right to decide who the American president is going to be. And if not, then you ought to mind your own business internationally. If you're not going to give us all a vote everywhere in the world in who's going to be president, then mind your own business. And don't interfere in anyone else's countries. But like I say, it's nothing but a circus. Truth is, it's nothing but a circus. Your elections don't decide anything. They don't decide anything. So if you get restricted from voting, if your vote gets suppressed, then nothing whatsoever has changed with regards to your impact on the decision of who gets in office or what they do once they get there. No. A vote that has been cast is in fact identical to a vote that has been suppressed. And just fighting about voter suppression is just a trick to make you think that your elections have anything whatsoever to do with power. But let me get back to talking to my own people. Let me get back to talking to the Muslims, because like I say, I already know that Americans are never going to do anything about any of this. They're certainly not going to do anything about it as long as they think of themselves as Americans. Because yes, like I say, as long as you call yourself that, as long as you think of yourself as that, as American, then you are self-identifying as a do-nothing, docile, brainwashed, compliant slave of the most tyrannical and heartless power structure the world has ever seen. That's what America means. You may as well call yourself a junkie. If you call yourself an American, you may as well call yourself a junkie. So for any of our people who have gone over there, or whose parents went over there and got you stuck in that country, and if any of our own people are thinking about going over there to that country, then let me tell you what your trajectory looks like, what the trajectory of that country looks like. And I'm not guessing. I'm reading the structural indicators. Like I said, I'm not telling you anything, but that a falling rock is going to hit the ground.
And you already know. I call myself a revolutionary. You feel me? Like he said, ain't nobody gonna do shit. He right. Because motherfuckers think they're in America. That means you're weak, you're docile, and you're not gonna fight. I gotta be the opposite of what they told me that I was. I gotta be the opposite of the indoctrination. I gotta be opposite. I gotta destroy this motherfucker. And we're gonna come back later because I got a video of a motherfucker burning down his fucking job. Yeah. Nigga burnt down his job. I might motherfucking go to the store and come back and start the live and do it. But anyway, yeah. Nigga burnt down his job. He said, you should have paid me more. I'm going to come back in a minute. I need some more blunts. Come back, try to finish up my song, and see if I can try to drop a track before I go live again. But shouts out to everybody. This is HHN in the morning. Catch y'all in a minute. And shouts out to my UK correspondent, Vance over there in the UK. She working. You know what I'm saying? Don't work too hard, baby. And shouts out to everybody in the chat. Everybody's going to watch on the playback. Catch y'all in a minute. Make sure y'all check out the new track called Born a Rebel, Die Immortal. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Low Key. I got another track with Jordan called I Can't Save the World. You already know what it is. About to get this thing popping. Shout out to Live and Learn. Much love to Amma. Peace to the Netherlands. Shouts out to Florida. Everybody. Chi-Town, Cali, Georgia, Ohio, Gotham City, Jersey, Texas, Vegas, Seattle, Washington, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody all over that be fucking with my content. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody, y'all respect the time zones, you know what I'm saying? UK, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to the UK, peace to the Netherlands, New Zealand, New England, the Outback Mike, and hashtag Starmer is a wanker. And we'll catch y'all in a minute. This is HHN in the morning.